Drill and Excel on the Piano, Book 2, is for the late beginner student. So this is good for a student that has been kind of playing on their own, maybe learned some songs from the YouTube channel, or has had a few months of lessons and is maybe a faster paced student for learning. And so it jumps right into doing hands together at the beginning. It starts out with the assignment pages, like as in Book 1, note pages, and here's the table of contents. And how this book works is all the books are the same when it comes to the parts of the book. It has 3 chapters with 7 parts, the note reading, writing assignments, rhythm, drill, scale for that chapter scale exercises, 20 original songs that use whatever information is used in that chapter, the test song at the end, and a write your own song. So 7 parts. It starts out with the pre-chapter as in book, the same as Book 1, going over it real quick, the keyboard geography, technique, finger numbers, the grand staff, rhythm, talks about the meters, hand position and finger numbers, the practice tips, which I suggest making a mention of that to your students because it's a great read to help them in their practicing. And then the chapter 1 is a recap of all of Book 1. So I'm not going to go through that. If you want to learn the for this chapter, you can go back to the Book 1 video and it will go through each chapter. So I am going to skip down to chapter 2. Chapter 2, what you need to know. So every chapter starts out with the what you need to know for that chapter. The rhythm adds the 8th note, the dotted quarter note, and the tie. So the rhythm gets a little bit more complicated, more challenging in this chapter. And also the scale and the hand position and the key will be in the key of G. So they'll be doing the G scale and the songs will be in the key of G. So the right hand will be doing G1 through D2, which is the G1 is the G above middle C. The left hand will actually have 2 positions, below middle C and then 2 octaves below middle C for the left hand. Grace note is introduced. There will be a song using that. The swing beat, there will be songs in the swing beat. Fermata and the new expression terms, allegro, adagio, dolce, and cantabile, that will be used in songs. And then the black keys are now introduced. All of Book 1 did not have any black keys. Everything was in the key of C. But now we go through all the sharps and flats and with the page for the student to fill out there. And the note reading pages for the notes in this chapter, G1 through D2, G through D1 in the left hand. And there are quite a few note reading assignments just because we have so many new notes in this chapter. It goes all the way, and then the great G in the left hand to D. So there are a total of 9 note reading pages. And then the rhythm drills, where we add, first of all, the 8th note on this first page. And by the way, I do teach 8th notes where they're not just faster, but they're exactly twice as fast as the beat. So I do teach how to instill that where they're still feeling the 1 beat pulse and then dividing that in half or playing twice as fast for the 8th note is very important. And counting is also very important, and they use the and for the 8th notes. And one thing I always tell my students is not to use the and unless they're actually dividing the beat, unless there are 8th notes, because we want to make sure they're feeling the beat and not the division. So that's very important in my opinion. Using a review of the 8th notes, then we add the dotted quarter note. And the dot was explained in the first book with the formula, being that it lengthens the note by half its value. So the student they can figure out whatever kind of note has a dot, how much it would be, because they know the formula, rather than just that in a dotted half note, the dot adds 1 beat kind of a thing. And counting a dotted quarter note is very tricky. Make sure that you're explaining that the dot is the next beat number if the dotted quarter note falls on beats 1, 2, or 3, if it's a 4/4 meter. Very important. Then we add the tie. Page 5 is a review of everything. And now we have the G scale, and they will play it in multiple octaves, up to 4 octaves, and you just check off the box when they've completed each octave. And the exercises, now going forward, all the exercises will be played in all the keys they've done up to this point. So they will start playing all of them in the key of C, and then they'll go back and play all of them again in the key of G. And what's important about that is 2 things. One, every time they're playing the exercises in that key, they're instilling further that key. So they feel at home in whatever key, using whatever sharps or flats are needed. So when they do these in the key of G, they go right to that F sharp. But the other thing about adding these exercises in other keys is it teaches them how to maneuver when they're having a black key, especially when using a 5 or 1 fingers that are a little shorter, so they can accommodate the white keys around there by moving up their hand a little bit closer to the back of the piano, so they can accommodate those black keys. So this is a great skill for students to have. And then we have the 20 songs in the key of G. Starts out with just simple rhythm, and then we add the 8th note rhythm, song 3. Pickup notes in song 5. More pickup notes, song 8. Now they're going down to the great G hand position in the left hand. Adds the dotted quarter note, and now we have independence of hand skill that was taught in the first book. It's also in the recap in chapter 1, where their left hand's playing forte and the right hand piano. So being able to play with different volumes, staccato with the left hand and legato with the right hand, another great skill to be able to do. And real fun songs. And one of the things too is that in writing these songs, I not only used the information that was given for that chapter in terms of notes and rhythm, but I also wanted to mix up the styles. So some of them may be kind of in a pop style, some classical, some I have some boogie styles. So I tried to mix up the styles, and so the student can be exposed to different kinds of music. And then here we go, song 18 with the swing beat, which was talked about at the What You Need to Know. Left hand playing marcato accents. And then the test song, which is a medley of the last few songs in that chapter. So one thing to make note too, if the students like the songs in this chapter, they're great for recital pieces, especially using the test song, because it's a little bit longer and it uses a few of the songs. So it's a great recital piece. And you write your own song to end up the chapter. And then now chapter 3, what you need to know. So this now adds the D scale and key signature. And now the notes will be from D1 all the way to A2 to finish out the treble clef. And then the bass clef, they're going to have D to A and then double D to double A. So that will finish out the bass clef staff as well. In the rhythm, the 6/8 meter is now introduced, and it shows what all the different length, the beats for each note now with the 8 on the bottom, but it also talks about the ratio being the same. So from the 8th note to the quarter is a doubling, from quarter to half is double, and half to whole is double. So it teaches that the ratio stays the same no matter what that bottom number changes to. And now in this chapter, we're going to be expanding outside the 5-note hand position. So this talks about the fingering and a little bit of that, the rolled chord, pedal marking, and that exercise at the bottom of this page I want to make a note of is a very important skill and exercise to teach the student. And what I've always done in this little exercise has it where the student will be playing the C scale, but using only one finger and having to pedal each note. So it will sound just like they're playing with the fingering, but now they're going to play it with one note and finger and pedal each finger. So it should sound legato. And it teaches that opposite action where your pedal will go up as you're playing the new note down. So that motor skill, doing that opposite action, takes a student a while to do that. But remind them, when they just keep repeating it, that it will be like a light switch, and suddenly they'll be able to do it, turn on, so it just takes repetition to get that. And then the note reading assignment pages for the notes in this chapter. And there are a total of 6 note reading pages. And then the rhythm drills in the 6/8 meter. And page 2 is more of that review. Dotted quarter note is now added. And then the scale in the key of D with the multiple octaves, and you can just check off those boxes when they complete each octave. And then I do a recap where they draw on the staff there, the C and G scale and then the D scale, just to remind them. And this is a good place to mention that it's always a good idea to review the scales. So even if they're whatever scale they're playing, maybe throw out, hey, remember playing such and such a scale. Make sure that they're keeping all the scales they learned previously fresh, so they don't forget those. And then the exercises now will be in the key of C, doing them all in the key of C, then doing them all in the key of G, and then doing them all in the key of D. So these exercises will take a while to get through. You could either have them do one exercise where they do all 3 keys back to back, or you can have them do all the exercises all in the key of C and then go back and do them all in the key of G and then all in the key of D, however you want to do that. And the special exercise, this is one of the most important special exercises that I believe is given in any of my books. And this is what I call my interval exercise. I've given this to my students for years where I just hand wrote it. So I'm really excited to have this officially in a book. But what this does is it takes every interval with every finger combination. So starting with the interval of a second, this also teaches the student what an interval is, so a little bit of theory. But using that, doing the second where they're going up. And there are video tutorials on these interval exercises to show you how to do that, as you can see playing. But it uses every finger combination. And the main thing about doing these exercises is they are not looking at their hands. So you want the student to be able to feel any interval with any finger combination, because when they start playing songs that expand outside the 5-note hand position, they're going to need to stretch and cross over and all of that. So that's what this exercise does. Starts with the second, goes to the third, fourth, fifth, doing every finger combination. Of course, the larger the interval, the fewer finger combinations that will become available, since it's hard to stretch on 1 and 2 to some of these. So I use some of them, the 1 and 2 for the 6th as an optional one in case a student can't quite stretch that far. And then the 7th, the octave. And now our songs in the key of D, starting out with a simple rhythm and goes from song number 1 to song number 2 with 8th notes. So they should be used to 8th notes at this point for rhythm. And then song number 4 starts with the playing the outside of the hand position. So I talk about that at the beginning of the song. And I do give the fingering when there is any kind of a note fingering that would be different from the regular hand position. So I try not to over finger. Anytime there's a repeated section, I will not give that fingering on the second repeat. So I want the students to start remembering those fingering in the same song. All right, so we go, and this song has the swing beat, song 5, that was talked about in the What You Need to Know. And every song does have a metronome mark, just to make that aware, and using the metronome is still recommended, at least to get them started with the tempo. This one has the 6/8, it changes the meter in this song. So 6/8 meter starting on song 8. And this one has kind of that kind of a 50s rock and roll kind of style. This one has like a pop style. I do a little writing on the beginning of each song to give my point of view on the song as far as style and what to look out for, watching the fingering on that. This one is like in a pop style. And so on, 6/8 meter. So I kind of mix up the meters between 4/4 and 6/8. And 14, that's a fun song. 15, 16, this one is in a boogie kind of a style with a swing beat. And 17, 19, and this song number 20 has a real pretty left hand, but it's kind of challenging. So I would always suggest doing the left hand by itself, for the student practicing by the left hand alone to get started on the song. And then the test song, which is a medley of the last few songs together, and again, a good recital piece. And then the Christmas songs, as in book 1, we do have Christmas songs at the end of the book. The chapter 1 is the Hands Together, which was the chapter 3 in book 1. And then chapter 2, if they're in the chapter 2 when Christmas comes around, they can play Jingle Bells Now in the key of G. And chapter 3, now Jingle Bells in the key of D, has a little bit more to it in the arrangement. And I also add Joy to the World as a little bonus song for the 3rd chapter, which is a 2-page song there. And then we have the practice and point charts, as in book 1, and empty manuscript pages for them to to write whatever they want, or you can use it for dictation if you want to do rhythm or note dictation, whatever you'd like to do. And there you have it, Drill and Excel on the Piano, Book 2 for the Late Beginner. Thank you for doing the greatest job in mentoring a student, and I hope you enjoy teaching from my books.